Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is Liz Peterson. I am recording the show Raise the Vibe here on Vashon Island. I have Ainslie Macleod in the studio with me today. Good morning, Ainslie. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
So
Good to be here.
Thank you. So we're talking about Ainslie's new book, the Souls Guidebook. Everybody go online and purchase it. I highly recommend it. I've been reading it, and it's wonderful. Ainslie, is there anything that you would like to say about your book if they pre-buy your book?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to say. If you pre-order the book before April 7th, then there's the opportunity to sign up for a webinar in a couple of weeks, Past Life, Present Purpose, learn more about the book. And so that's the encouragement.
Great. Thank you, Ainsley. All right.
That's a shameless plug.
All right. So we're going to get set recording our radio show now. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you all enjoy it. Hello and good morning. This is KVSH, Voice of Vashon 101.9 FM. I'm your host, Liz Peterson. I'm an energetic healer and run Liz's Healing Touch here on the island. Welcome to Raise the Vibe. I got the idea for this show last year. I really felt guided and inspired to create a show that was empowering, uplifting, and could help others find healing. A show where people could also be inspired, get connected, find resources in our community, and to support everyone on their journey. Ainslie Macleod is an internationally acclaimed past life psychic, spiritual teacher, and award-winning author of The Instruction, The Transformation, and most recently, The Old Souls Guidebook. Ainslie specializes in exploring past lives to reveal your life's purpose and has been a featured guest on Oprah's Super Soul Conversation series. He lives on a tranquil island in the Pacific Northwest. Ainslie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
So pleased to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Really
guess which tranquil island I live on.
Yes, our local celebrity here on Vashon Island. So, right. Old Souls Guidebook. Yeah. So it's wonderful. It's getting ready to be released.
It's released April 7th and coming right up. And yeah, I'm very excited about this. It's my third book, and it's been quite a few years.
What inspired you to write the book?
Well, I was just, I realized that with it being so long since I'd had a book come out, there was so much that I'd learned. I'm working with people every day, and I have so much more new information and ways to expand on the kind of thing that I'd written before. So that was the main motivation. I think that, and, you know, I'm just experiencing the most exciting things every day working with people, and I want to share it with the world. You know, we should all know about this.
Yes, we should. I agree. Your book is wonderful. I'm really enjoying reading it.
Thank you.
So when did you first discover you were a psychic, and how did your journey begin?
Well, I went for years having no clue that I was psychic. I mean, looking back, when I was a child, there were all these experiences that, you know, pointed to me being psychic, but I just put them down to just one of those things, you know, just weird things would happen, little, you know, kind of precognitive experiences, or I would, you know, I'd know when somebody's coming to the door, or know when somebody's about to call, just things a lot of us do. But then sort of weird things like seeing ghosts and so on. But I never for 1 second thought I was psychic. And then as I got older, people would tell me that I was psychic, and psychics themselves, who I was drawn to, would say, "Oh, you know, you should be doing something with it." And I was going, "I can't even imagine how you get started." And then I had the experience that really just transformed my life. I mean, it really was the big life changer. Was running into my deceased uncle in a bookstore in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
And he was just there for a second, but with a message about working with me. And this came after a number of psychics had told me that my uncle was a spirit guide and he wanted to work with me. And I was thinking, well, he's the last person who's going to be a spirit guide. He's a total atheist, and I was a non-believer, and what the heck would I be doing talking to spirit guides anyway? And anyway, I give it a try, and was pleasantly surprised, or actually really completely shocked to find that I could do it. And I wasn't very good. Like, to begin with, it was really hard work connecting with the other side.
Really? You said you were a non-believer.
Yeah, well, it was that weird sort of thing, cognitive dissonance or something, where I was convinced there was nothing beyond, but at the same time, I was fascinated by psychics and drawn to them. And if anybody I knew had gone to see a psychic, I'd be pumping them for information to the point where, they'd get up and leave. I don't want to talk about psychics anymore. But I was just fascinated because, it's like, how do they work? What's the mechanism? How can they tell you these things? Where are they getting the information from? And that sort of thing really fascinated me.
I've heard before that if you're fascinated in psychics, that's actually part of your path, that you are actually a psychic, and your intuition is trying to get you to, find all these gifts that you have within yourself.
That was exactly what it was. Once I was able to communicate with the other side and find out, of course, as any passion that you have, there's usually a past life component.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you enjoy sailing, for example, you'll have been a sailor in previous lifetimes. If you're a healer like you've been a healer. Well, I know you've been a healer in many, many past lives.
Right.
And you bring the talents into this life.
Oh,
and the interest.
So you were a psychic in a past life. Have you explored that?
Yeah, I've explored a little bit of it, yes. It was kind of, in the area of, being a wise woman in a past life and that sort of thing.
And can you remember bits and pieces of that life? Or
I'm able to go into any past life, for myself or anybody else, and get as much detail as I need.
Okay, and you do that via your guides?
Yes, so I have spirit guides just passing information on to me.
So why guides and not another avenue?
Why guides?
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it all worked out,
right?
Just that, when I started talking to my uncle, and then he very quickly passed me on to a group of spirit guides on a slightly different level. And they're who I work with now. They have the ability to see the big picture, to see where you're being, where you're going. And so I work with them every day. I realized I hadn't talked to my uncle for actually years. It's probably time to check in and see if he's still there.
Say hi.
But yeah, all the information comes from these guides. When I started, I spent about 3 years just practicing, just honing the skill. And
how do you hone a skill of communicating with guides, and how do you communicate with them? Do you hear them?
Yeah, well, good question.
Is it like impressed upon you?
Yeah, because when I first started talking to my uncle, it was kind of a stop-start, and I would get odd little words, and I was trying to be sure it was him. So the very first conversation, I was asking about planes that he'd flown during World War II, because that was something he would talk a lot about, his experiences in the RAF during World War II. So I got a list of planes, and I checked it out the next day with my father. I went, you might find this a bit of a weird question, but would you mind telling me, do you know what planes your brother flew during the war? And he had mentioned one that seemed very unlikely. And my dad said, oh yeah, and there's also this other one. And I was going, wow, damn, this is not just my imagination. This is coming from some other
so you have hard facts.
Source. Yes. So after that, how I really developed the ability was just to sit quietly with a notebook and a dictionary night after night, day after day, talking, asking questions, just putting questions out to the other side and seeing what I got back. So, and the reason I keep a dictionary with me is that part of the validation came from getting words that were not part of my vocabulary, or words that I'd never heard before, and finding that those were the most appropriate word in the context, whatever we were talking about. So that really very quickly helped me to, really be convinced that this was coming from another source. And initially, I got the information pretty much the way I do now, which is really getting full sentences. And in the moment that I'm channeling, I have nothing but that full sentence in my head. I couldn't think about anything else, or there's just nothing else in there. But I experimented with clairvoyance, and I do a little bit of that. Get images, little pictures that help sometimes to speak 1,000 words.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've experienced that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's gut feelings. I mean, I've been working with people where I suddenly get a pain in my body, and it goes to exactly what they're experiencing.
Oh, fascinating. So you have the empath component as well, the
Sure.
clairsentience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that can be kind of weird.
Clear feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. So you said a little while ago that they're on a different level than your uncle. Yeah. What exactly do you mean?
Well, there's really three levels, if you like, that concern, me and my guides. I mean, we're here on the physical plane. My uncle's on the astral plane, which is where we all go between lives. We go to process the life that we've had, plan the one that's coming up. These spirit guides are done with all their physical plane lives. They've been human, come to the end of the journey, spent time on the astral plane as spirit guides, and they've moved on to what's called the causal plane, which is where they have this, it's like a broader vantage point, and they can see much more of, not just about you as an individual, but see all your past lives and see the connection with other people in your life and how you've been connected to them in past lives as well, and what your life plan means. Is this somebody who's helping you on your journey? Are you helping them? Are you meant to be together in some way? And all the time, these guides are trying to get us to meet, to connect, and often work together in some sort of way. It could be a romantic agreement, or business partners, or just friendships. It's the great game, my spirit guides call it.
Why do they call it the great game?
They say it's what keeps them occupied.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, really so they're tapped into everything. So we could use them to improve our life. So how would we use our guides to improve our life?
Well, I think the first thing is that if you're aware that you have spirit guides, it's really about developing some kind of relationship with them. Because my problem, up until the time that I met my uncle, was that no matter how much psychics talked about spirit guides, I just didn't believe really that there was such a thing. And, I'm so far from actually talking to a spirit guide. But having that lack of belief, lack of awareness, part of the problem was that I just was blundering through life and not really paying attention to the cues and the guidance that, spirit guides, and that's what they're supposed to do, is guide you. I mean, we have the final say, we have the free will to make our choices. But I found that I would make choices that were not maybe the best, could be regarding people or career or whatever, because I wasn't paying attention to the cues. And looking back, it was really clear, that I could meet somebody who's not going to be particularly good for me, and get a gut feeling, something's not right.
Right.
The dry mouth, or those little ways that they're trying to say, hey, there's a red flag here, move on to something else. And once I was able to begin communicating with the spirit guides, then I realized that they're trying to get through to us all the time. We think that we're the ones struggling to connect with them, but they feel the same way, that it's frustrating for those in the spirit world that we don't spend enough time trying to work with them. They're much more aware that you can have that connection, so the spirit guides are nudging you and helping you through your emotions often to make wise choices. If something's the right course for you, then you should feel really positive about it. If it's not, you'll feel something negative, something holding you back. But so often we just disregard the gut feelings, the nudges, whatever they are. We use that intellectual part of us to override the intuition.
To excuse it away.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So positive or negative. So how do we know that they're good or bad? How do we know if we're communicating with the right guy, they're giving us the right information, and it's a positive thing for our life? Okay, that's a big question that I get all the time.
Well, that was a big thing that I learned right at the beginning, was how to know if I was connected to spirit guides. And what I would use is just a kind of prayer or incantation. I do this every day. I do it before every session with a client. Actually, I start every day with a little meditation and a prayer where I ask for protection, and I ask to make sure that I'm connected to the highest possible source, acting in the highest interest of me and everyone else concerned. And that sort of thing seems to really help. Plus, I would get again, in the body, I would get a sensation when I knew I was connected to the right source. And, it took a while, but after maybe a few months, that I was able to sense when I was connected. Put out the prayers or requests, and then I get a little sensation. In the early days, it was just down the back of my neck, and it was almost like, okay, yeah, I'm with my friends now, and plus a really positive, warm, good feeling.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, if I have to go like a day without talking to my spirit guides, I feel
really,
like
you communicate with them on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
So they help with every aspect of your life.
Yeah, it's not just about. I would ask them about most things. I mean, not the mundane. They're not interested in whether the should put the garbage out now or whatever. It's like it's going to be a little bit bigger, But certainly in terms of life's direction and people and so on. Yeah, I bring them in every day, even if I'm not working with clients, and I have a little check-in.
Nice.
And if I don't, I really feel like I've missed out on something.
Oh, that's really amazing. Yeah. How did you get from working with your spirit guides to doing past lives?
Well, very quickly after I started working with these guides, I discovered that we were constantly talking about past lives. And like I was saying, I spent about 3 years just developing the ability. I was terrified of getting things wrong. If I was working with somebody and I got something wrong, that was my big fear. So I wanted to be as perfect as I could be. And of course, there's no such thing, but I was trying to get close to that. And when I started reading people, it was really within the first few months that I realized that, yeah, we seem to keep going back to past lives. And then it became more and more of a thing, and almost the automatic go-to place. Like if somebody's got a problem in this life, it's so often related to what's happened in the past life. And I've got to the point now where I honestly believe that there's nothing about we humans that isn't past life related.
Why is that?
Because past lives affect everything from your personality to your goals and ambitions. All talents and abilities are past life related. Tastes in everything are determined by or influenced by past lives. There's almost nothing, your likes and dislikes, places you want to go, they're so often related to past lives as well. I find that all the time with clients. I'll talk about a past life in Italy, and somebody goes, "Oh my gosh, it's my favorite place on earth." I was even working with somebody who, and I put this in the book, that I told her that she'd had the happiest past lives in Amalfi in Italy. And I said something about where else did you go in Italy? What else did you enjoy? It's only Amalfi was the one place that she'd been in a past life. She'd been a restaurant owner in a past life. She'd only been to that one place. And that's how strongly the influence of past lives can be. That her soul was wanting to re-experience the joy and happiness that she'd had in the past, taking it right to that place. Conversely, I've had people who literally can't abide a certain place because of negative past life experiences.
Oh, fascinating.
You know, there was one woman who had a terrible experience in France in a past life, and I said to her something about, you know, have you ever been to France? I don't imagine you'd like it. And she told me how she got one of those rail passes when she was a student.
Mm-hmm.
She got all these Western European countries, and she lasted, she said, an hour in France. I don't know if she was exaggerating or not, but she could stand the voices, the accents, the atmosphere of the place. Everything was reminding her of the horrors that she'd experienced in a past life.
Wow. So why would it be important for us to go to past life source now within this current life?
The main reason for exploring past lives is for the healing potential. And what I found, you know, as I started working with past lives, is that I would tell somebody about what happened in past life to explain something like a fear of inferiority, or a phobia of some kind, maybe public speaking, or maybe it's an unexplained pain in the body. And then maybe I talk to them 2 or 3 months later, and whatever fear or limiting belief or ailment seemed to have cleared up. And that's what really got me so fascinated about doing this work, was that it's not just about satisfying your curiosity. I mean, it's interesting to know where you've been,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so much more, because fears, phobias, limiting beliefs, ailments can clear up. I mean, they can literally disappear.
So can't we have fears and phobias from our childhood though? And how do we differentiate between what was in our childhood or in our past life?
Well, absolutely. You can have the experience in your childhood, but how you react to it is dependent on what's in your soul's past. And I've seen this working with siblings, even twins, where they've had the same traumatic experience. I'm thinking of one pair who were raised by a violent alcoholic father. And one of them had a past life that was all about rejection, from abandonment hundreds of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, it was all about self-worth, inferiority from a past life where they're treated as having no value. And how they had processed what had happened in childhood was dependent on those past life experiences. So what I helped one to do was develop self-worth, and the other one to overcome this feeling of rejection and abandonment. And it was simply a matter of going in and finding what had happened in the past. The principle is really that you want to remind the soul that that was then and this is now. Although we can have many lives, I mean, you could be on life 110, like a really old soul,
Mm-hmm.
but your soul is on life number 1. Your soul doesn't die between lives. So it sees it all as this one long life. And people think the soul has all the answers, and it kind of doesn't. If it did, there would be no point in us coming here, because the soul would have nothing to learn. But it has to come to the physical plane to learn and grow. And so we just have to help the soul to understand that what it's worried about, what it's holding on to, is from a past life and doesn't belong in this life. And I think one of the exciting things is that you can do this with children. That I've helped clients with their children's phobias or fears.
Oh, that was going to be my next question.
And yeah, and that's been quite amazing. That the healing, it really begins by just telling the child what happened. And even if the child is, as often happens, they're not really that interested or they don't seem to react very much, the soul is being reminded. In that moment, the soul is going, oh, right, so that's a past life, and we don't have to worry that we're going to get murdered in our beds or whatever happened 100 years ago. That's not going to happen again. And the healing can be very, very quick.
So the irrational fears of like drowning, you know, when they've never had an experience like that before or something similar to that, would be past life related.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But I've helped several clients with children who are terrified of water, and just find out the past life, tell them what happened, and one. Perhaps I should have put this in the book, but it was such a great story, and maybe it's for the next one. But I told her about how her child, who had a huge fear of water, had drowned, fell off the back of a trawler, and had this moment of looking at the harbor way in the distance and the trawler disappearing.
Oh, wow.
And feeling I'm done for. I can't catch up with the trawler, and I can't get back to the harbor. And she talked about how she had been bathing her baby. I think it's about 18 months old and barely verbal, but she said suddenly he seemed to go into this kind of almost dream state. And he's talking about how I can't see the harbor or something like that, you know.
Interesting.
I'm drowning, you know, and then related it a little bit to like a Thomas the Tank Engine story where one of the trains fell in the water, and it very weird.
Wow, it sounded like he had a very visual flashback, and then was trying to describe it through his toys.
And was using language that were not typical of an 18-month-old.
Wow. So how quickly after she was able to relay the information did that phobia pass?
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
And usually, in my experience, some people get over a fear, phobia, or block sometimes in the moment. There's somebody I wrote about in the book who had been beheaded, and the moment I found out she'd been beheaded in a past life, I knew to look for neck and shoulder pain.
Ailments in the body.
Yeah, absolutely. Beheading it will always show up as neck and shoulder pain, not just one or the other. So it'll be both. And I mentioned this to her, and I said, well, do you have any neck and shoulder pain? And she said, I'm a ballroom dance teacher. I have to move my head and neck all the time. I've had 20 years of chronic pain.
Wow.
And it healed up in the moment. It disappeared and has never come back. And she's actually turned up at a couple of events that I've done. And I was telling that story, and she actually put her hand up. I mean, I'd only ever spoken to her on the phone, so I didn't know who she was. But she said, oh, that was me. And pain has never come back.
So in your book, you talk about Achilles' body parts. Would that be something?
That's totally an Achilles body part.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an area of weakness that we draw in from another life.
Oh, I see. All right. So we all have souls. Could you tell us your perspective on the soul?
Well, we all have souls. Yeah. Well, one of the things I talk about I went into this in my first book, The Instruction, and I've kind of expanded on this in my new book, is the whole principle of soul ages. Because for me, when I understood that when your soul's at different points in its evolution, it has very different perspectives on the world. And when I discovered that, it was like, oh my God, this explains everything. You know, I used to wonder, how could somebody who's got a degree in something be so bigoted? You know, doesn't their education play some part in, making them less of a racist or something? And actually, the answer is it all comes down to the age of the soul.
So there's, in your book, you talk about young and old souls. So there's the ages of the souls. And what's the difference between the young and the old soul?
The way it was presented to me is that there are 10 levels. You can break it into 10 parts. And up to the end of level 5, you're considered to be a young soul. After that halfway point, which for you might be 50 lifetimes ago, so it's a long time ago, but your perspective shifted. Young souls, they don't tend to have a lot of introspection, and their lack of experience can make them a little lacking in compassion. It doesn't mean that young soul's bad or anything, and it also doesn't mean you should look down on young souls, because we've all been there. It's just, they lack the experience that tells them that we're all connected. Roughly after that halfway mark, you become an old soul. And then you develop through different stages there, but you have much more ability to go inward. There's an introspection that's really not possible before that point. And that's one of the signs really of being an old soul, is that, greater ability to reflect and contemplate, and also to develop empathy through, it's hard for a young soul to have the same empathy because they see themselves and others so strongly. As the soul ages, it's going from a place of fear to love, or from me to we. So it's from selfishness to greater altruism. And it doesn't mean somehow as an old soul you're perfect. You can still be an old soul and be a jerk, or you can be blocked or whatever. But it is, when you look at concerns about the environment or about people who are being mistreated in some way, it's the old souls who are ones who are most affected by that and want to do something about it. Young souls just, as long as it's not happening to them, it doesn't affect them the same way. So, right now there's in the news that a country of Brunei is, they've initiated Sharia law and death penalty for gays. That can only happen in a very young soul part of the world. I think old souls have far too much empathy and are horrified by something like that. And that's what I mean by when I first was trying to figure this out, before I had this awareness and this knowledge. It's not a question of intelligence. It's not a question of education. Why would somebody think it's okay to execute gays? And it's really just down to that, having that very young soul perspective. And of course, it shows up at the ballot box. Just generally, younger souls tend to be more conservative. Older souls tend to be more progressive.
So it sounds like it's similar to in life when we experience something, then when we come across someone who's experiencing the same thing, we have compassion for them. So in these lives that we're living, we've lived through all of that before. Yeah. So then that overlays our current life, and it's sort of a natural thing that comes out of us from our past experience.
That's exactly how it works. As an old soul, when you see somebody suffering, your soul will try to get you to react emotionally. So, imagine you're driving along and you see somebody who's homeless, begging for money. Well, as an old soul, your soul is trying to get your attention and say, hey, remember when we were homeless? Remember when we didn't have food to eat, and no place to stay? And it's actually trying to get an emotional reaction, like an empathic reaction, so that you will do something about it. It's actually trying to encourage you to take action.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we have that.
Yeah.
So, does our soul pass? So we're living all of these lives. Is there an end? Like, do we graduate onto something? Have you ever asked your guys that question?
Yes. Yeah. We, at some point, when we've learned enough about what it is to be human, and embodied the core values that the soul's seeking to experience. These are peace, love, truth, understanding, these higher values. Then the soul will decide at some point, okay, I'm done here. I've got enough. I point out in the book that perfection's not the goal, because if it were, we'd all be here forever. So there has to be a point where the soul just calls it good and it's okay. I think we're done here. And then, just in a nutshell, the soul will then go to the astral plane, spend time as a spirit guide, usually for souls that it's known before, but not necessarily, and then wait for other members of the soul family to congregate there, and then eventually they move to this higher level where one of my spirit guides are now, where they have more. It's more like a unified kind of thing. It's like a group of souls. I mean, I don't know who my spirit guides are. People are asking me all the time, well, do you know their names? Not really, When I've talked to them about, how do you like to be addressed? It's just spirit guides that just don't see the same, don't have the same sense of individuality as they might on the astral plane.
Right.
And then at some point beyond that, you kind of will drift back into the universal consciousness where you came from. It's all heady, esoteric, cosmic stuff.
Way beyond our
Yeah.
minds. Okay, big buzzwords these days: soulmate and twin flames. So how do we know?
Well,
do we have them?
Yeah, well, definitely they exist. And this is again something about soul ages, because the older your soul gets, the more it wants to reconnect with members of its soul family. It wants to share its experiences with what the spirit guides call old friends, who are souls that it's interacted with before. And the reason for that is it seems to be easier to get to a place of deeper intimacy and deeper connection with souls that you've known before, instead of forging new friendships. I mean, of course, we do that anyway, but the soul is really, well, most souls are looking to connect with ones that's known before. And so an old friend is a member of your soul family that you've known before, and a soulmate could be considered an old friend, but one with whom you have a romantic agreement. And so, I mean, and I have to say, my spirit guides are a little flexible with the terms. Sometimes you soulmate just to talk about somebody with whom you have a very, very strong connection.
I see.
But generally, if you think of it, it's a romantic agreement. And then that agreement means that your souls want to attempt a relationship. It doesn't seem to come with any guarantees at all. And I've worked with people who've thought that they split up with a soulmate, they're never going to meet anybody else, that's it. And actually, sometimes you meet a soulmate and it just doesn't work out for whatever reason. And we have multiple agreements, and we can forge new agreements. And a lot of the agreements are made before we come into the world, but we can make new ones.
So are we all sitting around a table coming up with our life plan and agreements with
pretty
each
much,
other?
yeah. And it's the soul's going, I really want to be with you because I think we can work through some big lessons. We both had this shared experience before, so maybe you can work out some karma together. And so it's really, it's what spirit guides are doing all the time. It's really helping us to connect with people and have these more meaningful relationships. The twin flame thing, my spirit guides don't use that term exactly, but they do talk about sometimes how you have this connection. It's actually a member of your, it's actually an aspect of your own soul, if you like.
So do you split off?
Yeah, and this is really weird.
Go for it. I'm interested.
Okay, well, I'll go for it. Yeah, I know some people have a real, it's like a sort of proprietary kind of thing about their soul. They don't like the idea that it might be in more than one place.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about it, so I'm sure people would be interested in hearing about it.
So I've come across it a few times in the last 20 years, where I found somebody has met, or in the case of one of them, was going to meet this twin soul, if you like. It's like an aspect of themselves, part of the old soul. The old souls will split off to be in multiple places for different reasons. Partly to keep a balance between young and old souls in a sort of rapidly growing population.
Oh, that's fascinating.
But also for growth. I mean, imagine having 5 lives at the same time. You're going to get a lot of growth from that. So yeah, I was working with somebody who's, for quite a while we're talking about this person coming along, and it was a rescue mission for both of them. And this is really pretty much the only reason that I see it happening, is that somebody is really stuck in their life, and so along comes, another part of their soul to say, hey, there might be another way of doing this. There might be something better. And so, yeah, probably maybe 4 or 5 times I've come across this. The interesting thing about it is that it doesn't seem to really stick. I mean, it's almost like if you'd think it would be the most wonderful connection, it's actually a bit sort of meh. You're meeting yourself, and even if you're in a completely different package, there's something that doesn't seem to really work. And I haven't seen any of these really form successful long-term relationships.
Huh.
Yeah.
So for a soulmate, what are there some signs that we can pick up that we're actually with our soulmate? Things to look
Well,
out
usually
for?
the first thing is that when you meet somebody who's a soulmate, you'll feel a deeper than average connection. When you meet somebody and you feel like, have I known you? Have I met you before?
Right.
Familiarity. I mean, that's usually it. The other thing is, because of the soul family that you belong to, that sometimes you will meet somebody, and then it might be days, weeks, or months later that they mention somebody, and you realize, oh, it's a mutual friend. But yeah, that will happen because it's almost a circle of souls that you belong to. There's a high chance that you have that moment where, oh, I can't believe you know so and so. I had 2 people part of the same soul family who they were going to just go out and party at the weekend, and then one called to say, well, I can't make it. I'm going to a wedding, and the other said, oh, that's okay. I'm going to a wedding too, and both ended up at the same wedding. So
do we gravitate to the same regions of the planet? As soul groups, do we plan?
Yeah, you get spiritual homes, places on the planet where you feel drawn to, more than once, and usually because there's a pocket of souls that are members of this soul family for hanging out there.
Okay.
And so, I occasionally come across somebody who was their own great grandfather, or part of that same family.
Really? So we can be
Physical
past family members?
Yeah, it does happen. I was working with somebody who I was telling him about how he had died in a past life when his ship went down off the Azores, 150 years ago. And he goes, wow, that's really strange. My great grandfather's ship, he died when his ship went down off the Azores. He goes, do you think I could be my own great grandfather? And and I asked my spirit guides, they have this kind of sense of humor, but especially when I ask the obvious. And I go, wow, do you think this guy could be his own great grandfather? And they're just going, we refuse to answer. The idea of this is just so obvious, of course.
Fascinating. What about people that would argue that it's just our cellular memory?
I have no idea. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know the first thing about cellular memory. So.
All right. So a little while ago, you mentioned something about karma. So what about karma?
Yeah.
In our, past lives and current lives?
Karma's the great balancing act. One of the things that I like to point out is that, what I've learned about karma is that it has nothing to do with punishment. I think there's sometimes an idea that you end up in a wheelchair in this life because of something you did in another life.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard.
It just doesn't work like that. But it's all about balancing experiences of one life in the next. So I'll see things like I have clients who who've been abandoned as a child in a previous lifetime and been drawn to help orphans in this life. Sometimes someone who's been saved, they had their life saved maybe by medical professionals in a past life, will then want to be a medical professional in this life because of it's karmic. It's all about balancing experiences. And sometimes we do, pretty awful things in past lives. And there's certainly an atonement that we'll do, which is karmic, wanting to help others. And sometimes we do it, like I say, because maybe, we've been helped by others, so then we want to help back. So I always say you can't look at somebody who's doing good work and just say, oh, they must have done something awful in the past life and now they're atoning for that, because they could have been somebody who had their life saved and now they feel very grateful. The soul feels grateful for that.
Yeah.
Balancing it that way.
Are there any favorite stories in your book that you would want to share?
Oh gosh,
we'd love to hear one.
karmic stories. Well, there's one that I talk about. It's to do with unfinished business, and this was somebody I was working with who called up, and every so often I'll have this thing that happens. It's usually a guy, and I usually at the beginning of a session want to get some idea of what people are looking for. What are you trying to get from the session today? And sometimes people if they just want to give nothing more than their name, and that's all I've got.
Wow.
No questions, nothing. Sometimes it's just, well, my wife had a great session with you, and the guy just, he just wants to prove it or just
right,
show
he
me.
wants the experience, but it doesn't.
Yeah, so he gave me absolutely nothing, and I said, well, okay, let me just talk to the spirit guides. And the first thing that they did was they told me that he had been involved in the design of submarines, the earliest submarines, with a particular interest in pitch, yaw, and roll. And I had no idea.
And what is that?
Well, I had no idea. It's to do with the motion of maybe a ship or a plane, the different ways that it moves through the air or water.
Okay.
And so I said to him, I just told him what I just told you. And he was blown away because in this life, he said, it's my obsession, is pitch, yaw, and roll. And he said, I think about it all the time. I'm constantly trying to find new ways to make it work. And after the session, he sent me pictures and videos of things that he had constructed. He had some kind of pitch, yaw, and roll design. It actually was annotated with just those 3 words.
Wow.
Where it was a pencil drawing of something he was constructing. There was something else, like a flight simulator sort of thing. It's just like a frame that he created for his kids, so they could revolve on different axes, and other stuff that videos of his kids playing with these inventions. Now, what he's doing is completing something from the previous lifetime that he didn't get a chance to get done, and souls are very conscious of that. That if you don't complete what you set out to do, you will try to complete that in a future lifetime. So a lot of us are doing that, and we're drawn to specific experiences until we're done with it. You'll see people all the time. They have a particular interest in something, and then maybe at the age of 40, they just change career, or they're no longer interested in that, or maybe they pick up something later in life, and that they then become very passionate about that. Again, it can be completing something that they've done before.
Oh, interesting. So if we have that sense that, as you talk in your book, how you feel like you don't have enough time to get something done, would that be a good example of that? Like when you're changing careers late in life, like picking up where you left off?
Yeah. The sense of unfinished business, technically it's a past life fear of failure. And so the soul is carrying disappointment from the past life, it feels that it failed in some way. It has a life plan, but it didn't get a chance to do whatever was in there. So it will then, in this life, give that feeling sometimes, oh, there's not enough time to get things done. Now, I've been dealing with it all my life, some short, disappointing lifetimes before this. And I don't read fiction. I'm one of those people who goes, life's too short to read fiction. I want to be learning all the time, because I didn't get a chance to learn what I wanted in the previous lifetimes. I had a life of dyslexia. And that's something, when I find people being dyslexic in previous lifetimes, they read like crazy in this life. And I'm one of those. I mean, I read all the time. And again, making up for lost time. But you can also have that, like an underlying sense of urgency, but not knowing what to do with it.
Right. So how do you figure out what to do with it? Like if somebody's searching, like, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? How do you go about figuring that out?
Well, you talk to me, or you read my book, or you could go into a past life and find out. You could do this through regression. Obviously, when I'm working with people, I can just tell them about a past life, and I'm in the zone, so I just I learned very early on that I didn't have the patience to do regressions all the time, but I'll do them in groups. And we actually do a regression as part of our membership program, Soul World's membership
Can you explain
program.
to people who don't know what a regression is?
Yeah, absolutely. A past life regression, which I'll usually do in a group, is where I'll take people back into a past life. So it's a little bit of relaxation, and then just getting your spirit guides to take you wherever you need to go, and discover just often all you need is just a few key elements of past life. This happened to me, this is how I died, this is how I feel about it. Come back into the present, and it usually explains a great deal about the limiting beliefs you might have, or whatever's blocking you. But you can also you can find things that were really quite exciting. You might go back to a past life and find that you just love to dance. And sometimes when something like that comes up in my sessions, I'll say to somebody, well, you were a dancer. I think I even mentioned this in the book with somebody. I said, you were a dancer in a past life, and why are you not dancing now? And the person goes, I don't know, I love dancing. But often there's those things that we really enjoy doing, and we put them off.
So is that how we find our purpose? Is find something that we enjoy and go from there?
A lot of it's to do with what you enjoy doing. What are your aptitudes, talents? What brings you pleasure? What I like to say is that your destiny is not a secret. You just need to know what to look for. And sometimes there are really obvious things, like just looking at what's, what excites you. I'll work with somebody who might be in the corporate world, and I'll say to them, you're supposed to be a musician in this life. And they'll say, oh gosh, as a child, that's all I ever wanted to do. But, people told me I'd never make any money at it. And, I wanted the security of, I did a business course or something instead. And it's never too late. I mean, I've worked with people, my oldest clients in their late 80s, and, able to find things that would bring a little bit more joy into her life. And I think for her, it was gardening. And, it's like something she'd done in previous lifetimes. She loved doing it. And the question is, if you love doing these things, why are you not doing more of it?
Mm-hmm. Good point, Ainslie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what brings you joy? You should be doing more of that for sure. Do you have any advice for people who'd like to delve deeper into this field?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I would say check out my book, The Old Souls Guidebook. And or, if you don't mind me giving a shameless plug.
Yes, please plug away. That's why we're here.
oldsoulsguidebook.com. And that will give you everything you need to know about the book, and also where to buy it. There's also, once you go there, check out my website and membership program, Soul World membership program. And this is a place where we do classes Past-Life Regressions. Every month we got.
And so there are two websites, one for the Old Souls Guidebook and the other.
Well, there's one just under my name, just AinslieMacleod.com.
Okay.
And soulworld.com.
Soulworld.com.
And yeah, and that would be my suggestion. If you want to learn more about this, you're going to find, books, products, information, videos, and so on.
Okay. Do you have any events coming up in your future?
I do. I'm going to be at East West in Seattle, and I actually have the date here. It's June 21st and 22nd. I'll be giving a talk on Friday evening, and then a workshop on Saturday.
What's the workshop about?
The workshop is going to be related to the book itself, and it's really about understanding past lives and how they relate to the present.
Okay. And then Friday night, is that just a talk?
Friday night will be a talk and a book signing.
Oh, fine. And do they get to do a regression with you?
Oh, yes. Well, definitely.
Fine.
Can't escape past life work if you come to one of my events. I'll also be at Kripalu in Massachusetts.
And Kripalu in Massachusetts, and what are you going to be doing there?
I'm going to be doing very much the same sort of thing. So I'll be doing a sort of East Coast and West Coast, very much the same.
Okay, great.
Workshop there. So a little bit longer in Massachusetts.
And then you're on social media as well?
I am, absolutely. Instagram, Facebook. I'm not hard to find, even if spelling my name is a little hard sometimes.
Cool. So we have about 3 more minutes, 4 more minutes. Ainsley, is there a favorite story of yours that you would like to, favorite story or two that you would like to share with us? Past life?
Oh my gosh. Well, gosh, I mean, there's so many of them. I think some of my favorites are, there was somebody I write about in the book. It's a client's daughter. And when I first worked with my client, I mentioned to her that her daughter had had a lot of past lives as a Hispanic woman and in different cultures. And she told me that although they're Caucasian living in the Pacific Northwest, from the moment her daughter was born practically, she's identified as Hispanic. She dyed her hair black, she darkened her skin. And now she's at college, she's college age, and she's involved in programs to help Hispanic women.
Wow.
Yeah. And she just never felt that she belonged to the culture. She was ashamed of being white. She'd been very mistreated by white people in recent past lives.
Interesting.
Yeah, teaching herself Spanish at age 4 and that sort of thing. It just blew me away.
Wow. Well, so some of these kids who come in as like pianists that we see on YouTube and that sort of thing, is that that's what's going on?
Yeah, I when people say, oh gosh, how on earth can they do this? It's like, to me, it's obvious. It's like, what past life ability? It's like, of course, they've done it before.
So they're just carrying it forward from the past life into this life?
Yeah.
Fascinating. So how can we tap into some of those, if we're unaware, since we have another minute or so?
Well, if you want to tap into your own talents, one very quick and relatively easy way to do it is to do your own regression. And you could do this very simply by just going into a meditative state, let's say 10 minutes meditation, and then just ask spirit guides to show you some of the abilities that you've had in the past. And it's by airing those, maybe you see yourself playing piano or whatever it might be, and you'll find that then when you come back into the present, you've got an increased ability. You're drawing the energy from the past life into the present. I find it utterly fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we can use this for not just that, I'm assuming.
Anything.
We could go past life regression for.
I mean, you could have a past life. Gosh, as a teacher, you could improve your teaching skills now. As a healer, and it doesn't even have to be like for like. You could go into a past life, and this is maybe extreme, but I have found that you could go into a past life and find one as a midwife, and it would help you as an herbalist or a GP. Now it's you're drawing on the energy of the healer
That's fantastic,
Yeah.
Ainslie. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's been so wonderful talking with you about the book, and it's been such a great learning experience. Again, everybody go and buy Ainslie's new book, The Old Souls Guidebook. I highly recommend it. Get out there and buy your copy today. I'm so happy to be able to share Ainslie and Ainslie's new book with our community. And thank you everyone for listening and spending part of your morning with us. I hope you have a great day, a great week, and I hope you raise the vibe. Views expressed in this show are not the views of Voice of Vashon. This is Raise the Vibe on KVSH Voice of Vashon 101.9 FM. Goodbye, everybody. And remember to go out there and raise the vibe. Thank you, everyone. Everybody live, thank you for joining us today during this recording. Again, going out there, I'm going to borrow this for a second, and get Ainslie's book. It's fantastic, The Old Souls Guidebook. I hope everybody learned something today. And please contact Ainslie. You can find him on Facebook, Instagram, and online at his various websites. All you have to do is punch him in the search bar. And Ainslie, again, you have a promotion going on for buying the book. If you want to go ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you go to oldsoulsguidebook.com, then you will find the instructions there for how to sign up for a webinar we're going to be having in a couple of weeks, Past Life's Present Purpose. All you got to do is pre-order the book.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ainsley. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.